Thank you for joining us as we sit down with Mary Ammerman of the University of Michigan Economic Growth Institute. Mary, please tell us more about yourself and your engagement with the Downriver Community Conference.
I am Mary Ammerman, Project Manager at the University of Michigan Economic Growth Institute. Yeah, the Downriver Community Conference is a wonderful organization. It's a Michigan nonprofit corporation located in Southgate, Michigan, and it serves 20 municipal member communities in the Downriver Wayne County. And they provide leadership in establishing common positive goals and strategies to help develop those human, social, and economic assets in the Downriver area. That region that they represent in those communities includes the Downriver riverfront communities of River Rouge, Ecorse, Riverview, Wyandotte, and Trenton. And these communities were faced with the pending closure of 2 DTE coal-fired power plants. And these closures really made available significant riverfront property for redevelopment. And we also knew that there would be economic impacts for these losses and really a shared potential for riverfront redevelopment that created a great need and opportunity in this region. So it all started in the fall of 2021. DCC contracted the Economic Growth Institute to facilitate a strategic planning project aimed at creating an economic development strategy to address those economic impacts to the region as a result of that industry downturn. So I think they, again, were really looking for an opportunity to bring these communities together. They are so close geographically and have a lot of shared vision, and really looked at, for this region and these communities, if one succeeds, they all succeed. So coming together and bringing these communities together to work together in developing a vision and a plan for economic stability and recovery was really, their best path forward. It was, I believe it was, around 4 months, maybe 4 to 6 months. And we really had a tight timeline on it because we had some real goals that we were working towards and some deadlines that we were working under. Our implementation approach included a team of consultants or decision coaches from EGI. There were a handful of us working with the region who really guided those stakeholders through the development and refinement of this economic recovery strategy. Us as decision coaches, we provided that expertise and guidance on how decision-making best practices can be applied and used within the Allovance software solution. And we facilitated several key meetings utilizing that Allovance method and software to identify that common goal, priorities and objectives, and eventually resulted in the bringing forward of a handful of projects and the successful selection of 3 projects to move forward with as well. That compare step, having visuals that help support and drive discussion from a facilitator and from the strategy team's perspective, I think is super valuable. The other piece that I would say is that final score step and being able to have kind of all of these different ways of translating and visually showing what these projects mean as it relates to the strategy. So there's all of this work that goes into creating the scorecard and all of that. And then to go through the process of submitting projects, it's wonderful to have all of kind of those different tools to show, whether it be the strategic alignment bar graphs or the graph where we plot the projects, just kind of showing all of these nuances of really what it means in relation to the scorecard and the projects that were submitted is super helpful as we're sort of explaining, okay, this is, and again, from a non-biased perspective, this is what you all said. were your priorities and objectives, and this is how you scored your projects, and this is where they land. Like it was really, I think, visually helpful to have those tools. In this instance, when we went through that compare step, so after we have this discussion and everybody brings forward their priorities and objectives, and we all have that understanding of these are all priorities. We recognize that. However, this is a moment in time, and we know there's limited resources, there's limited capacity. So we had to have those difficult conversations of, if not this, then this, with their priorities. And I think that while that was a difficult conversation and there were some differing of opinions, we were always able to land somewhere where everyone felt comfortable. And I do think that there were maybe some surprises on what really did have like a higher level of priority for folks in this moment. I think it really did. Having that visual, again, it creates difficult conversations, but from difficult conversations and challenging moments, I think really results in like that positive, okay, we're all agreeing upon this. Like, even though, again, there were sometimes conflict, like everybody came together at the end. And again, I think seeing those visuals and utilizing that software helped to really illustrate the conversation that we're trying to have. The strategic team was armed with a first step plan to pursue funding through a U.S. Department of Commerce EDA grant. Their application was ultimately successful, resulting in $1.6 million grant for the continued support for the riverfront communities. The EDA grant included the creation of a specialist in an office who would in turn build additional capacity and expand into other projects that were identified in the strategy and really advance access to other communities within the Downriver region as well. So this process and plan really served the mission of the group and was that catalyst for economic change for the region that was led by DCC. There were 20-some projects that were submitted as a part of the Allovance process, and a handful rose to that critical priority level. And the 3 projects that were inevitably included or eventually included in that EDA application were 3 of those projects. So one of which was to create that economic development office within the DCC organization. They had not had an economic development office, and they were able to hire that additional staff. The other projects were brownfield redevelopment strategy planning and small business support. EGI has been continuing to help support and build capacity for the region on this grant. We specifically were involved in 2 of the projects. So helping to build that economic development office, and included in that was continuing to support and move forward and advance the strategy, and supported a refresh of that strategy in 2023. We also helped bring through their economic development staff through the Allovance process. We were able to support in their training and help them become also a certified decision coach. And again, we were able to do something that I had never done at that point, which was to check in a few years later and say, where is this at? What's changed? What needs to be adjusted? And so that was a wonderful opportunity there.
Mary, thank you for sharing your story with us. And thank you for sharing how Allovance helped the Downriver Community Conference successfully secure the grant. Allovance helps businesses, nonprofits, and government entities bring clarity to some of their toughest strategic planning and capital planning issues. To learn more about Allovance, visit allovance.com.